What's up, my nerds? Sarge here with you again today to discuss what Battlefield 5 will have to get right to help the franchise recover from its recent missteps. In case you've been in space and are just re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, there's been a little bit of controversy surrounding Battlefield 5. Somehow EA has managed to piss off absolutely everyone this time. Of course, with some help from Reddit, Angry Joe, and the internet at large. It started with a simple concern of having a female character with a robot arm as the focal point of the first trailer. Some potential players were concerned that both the female and the robot arm were signs that the game would be completely immersion breaking, given that the setting is World War II. I myself really haven't taken sides one way or another in this discussion, but I can see points from both sides. On one hand, first-person shooters in general are never really realistic from a physical life perspective. No one can take a bullet from a 50 cal to the kneecap and keep running. But on the other hand, the Battlefield series, aside from its Bad Company games, has always had a little more serious tone and felt closer to reality than your Call of Duties and games like Destiny. So, if cooler heads had prevailed, this should have been the discussion that took place. But the internet, as it always does, lost its shit. EA decided to release a statement and alienate half of its player base by telling those who didn't like the female robot character in the trailer that they shouldn't buy the game, which of course caused a massive uproar. So then Angry Joe decided to come to the rescue, quote unquote, and blame Trump supporters for the controversy. I guess we can expect to see Joe running in 2020. But anyways, the rest of that whole debate is history, and y'all have seen and heard enough of that. For this, I am certain. As if the Battlefield 5 controversy wasn't enough, I have other concerns about the franchise being able to restore its favor with the fan base, back to where it was during the days of Bad Company and Battlefield 3 and 4 after the bugs were worked out from each of those games. Very few FPS fans would argue that the games I just mentioned were some of the most solid FPS multiplayer action that we've ever had. For my money, Battlefield 4 was about as good as it gets, once they had completely debugged it, that is. The game had great customization and options to engage different play styles. The vehicles were complex enough that they took time to learn, but once you did, they were incredibly rewarding. If I ever found myself having a bad game, I would just hop in an LAV or a Little Bird, and I could completely change the course of the match. The only problem with this matrix was that it was not favorable to new or casual players. If you were a master in a tank, plane, or helicopter, new players literally had a 0% chance to stop you unless they got help from other series veterans. Recognizing this, EA and DICE did what most developers have done in the past and completely overcompensated for this disparity in their next game, Battlefield 1. They inserted hero classes that gave free kills, and behemoths that allowed poor teams to get free kills and crawl back from annihilation. They made flying easier and allowed tanks to repair themselves without even getting out of the vehicle. All of these mechanics greatly favored new and casual players. Thus, many of the series veterans were very disappointed early in the game's life cycle. So when you combine these two failures, the controversy over Battlefield 5 and the way that series veterans felt abandoned with the direction the game went in Battlefield 1, and I won't even mention Battlefield Hardline, EA and DICE have a lot of ground to make up with this coming iteration. So what things must they do well to win back players who enjoyed the previous experience? Obviously, to sell more games, you want them to be enjoyable to the greatest amount of people as possible. Sometimes this means disallowing certain mechanics that may make it possible for constant massacres to occur. However, dumbing the game down too much and making high kill 50 and 100 kill games almost impossible alienates your hardcore fan base. So DICE and EA need to figure out what is the correct balance of having mechanics built into the game that can be mastered to excel without leading to continual bloodbaths for those who don't. I think they were actually pretty close towards the last DLC for Battlefield 4. Even though you would frequently see really good pilots having absurd games of 100 plus kills, that didn't always necessarily translate into overall massacres for the other team. Sure, obviously a lot of people were taking deaths when that pilot was getting 100 kills, but in objective-based gameplay, it was hard for Jets to control a specific point or portion of the map, especially if there was an AA present on the other team. I know, it sounds shitty to want a game where few players can massacre an entire other team of noobs. But think of what the opposite implies. If you balance kill death across all players, that means that everyone needs to end up pretty close to even at the end of the match, with the best players going 20 and 10 and the worst players going 10 and 20. That doesn't sound fun. Nobody strives to go 20 and 10 in their best game of Call of Duty or Battlefield. If you play one of the best games of your life, you want people to audibly gasp in chat during the post-game review. Holy shit! Sarge went 65 and 3 that game? No one in Battlefield history has ever been praised for going 20 and 10. So evening all players out so that is the range should not be the goal for EA or DICE. So if it sounds like I'm hoping that Battlefield 5 is more like Battlefield 4 than Battlefield 1, that's because it's exactly what I'm hoping. If you're looking for a game where everyone runs around like complete jackasses and no one goes extremely negative or extremely positive KD, there's a somewhat popular game they release every year. It's called Call of Duty. EA and DICE need to realize that COD has that arcadey, no risk, no reward market corner. So they should try to cash in on the player base that is seeking a challenge to be great at the risk of getting owned. The success of the Battle Royale genre should teach them something. In Battle Royale, you either win or lose, and most of the time, you lose. But it's the thrill of having the chance to say for one match, you were number 1 out of 64 players that makes those games so addictive. If it were just, I was number 1 out of 2, no one would ever give a damn, because that would mean you were likely to win half of the time. So I find it funny that games like Call of Duty and Battlefield have been playing it so safe as to not alienate their worst players, when the community has repeatedly rejected their casual, unrewarding gameplay. By now, the game probably is what it's going to be on launch. So here's to hoping that this year Battlefield is challenging for most, rather than disappointing for all. I'd love to hear your comments and what your hopes are for the game now that we're so close to release. As always, thanks so much guys for watching. Please remember to rate and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, Sarge out.